Guys, what's going on? James here, and welcome back to yet another video where I break down each position of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Today we are talking about linebackers, so this is pretty much 3 days worth of videos, so let's get right into it. Obviously, you have the left outside linebacker, the middle linebacker, and the right outside linebacker. Now, again, with these backups, it's kind of hard to say where they're going to go, so I've just kind of put them where they might go or where I think they might go. Obviously, at left outside linebacker, you have Kendall Beckwith, you have Devontae Bond, you have Nigel Harris, and you have Cameron Lynch. I almost forgot Nigel Harris's name. I did not, though. At middle linebacker, you have Quan Alexander, Riley Bullough, Jack Sitchie, the 6th-round draft pick for the Buccaneers, as well as Jeff Knox. And at right outside linebacker, you have Levante David, Adarius Taylor, formerly Adarius Glanton, Antonio Simmons, and Eric Nzocha. There you go. I think I got all those names right. So anyway, let's start with the left outside linebacker position. Now, for Kendall Beckwith, obviously, for those of you who are up to date in the know, I'm sure, as we all are, Kendall Beckwith kind of got into a freak car accident that broke his ankle or something like that, something along the lines of that. So he might actually be out for the start of the season. He's definitely going to be out for the entirety of the Bucs off-season program, which is very unfortunate. However, it does give the opportunity for guys like Devontae Bond, guys like Nigel Harris, and guys like Cameron Lynch to battle for that left outside linebacker spot. One name that comes to my mind specifically is Cameron Lynch, who's actually been surprisingly very on and off with the Bucs for the past I want to say it feels like 5 years, but I'm sure it's not 5 years. It's probably like 3 or 4. But Lynch has managed to stick around. It's actually very impressive. Kudos to Cameron Lynch. They do value him as a special teams player, and they do value him as a linebacker as well. He has made the roster before. Can he do it again? Devontae Bond. For a 6th rounder, obviously making the roster multiple years in a row is pretty impressive for a 6th rounder. But I've never been too I've never been impressed by him. Sorry, I can't speak right now. It's like 2:30 in the morning, but I've never been too impressed with him. He's never done much to me that's made him stand out. So, it is what it is. And then Nigel Harris, I think he was undrafted. And obviously, it's a big opportunity with Kendall Beckwith being out, because not only are you battling for a backup spot once Beckwith comes back, you're battling for potentially a starting spot week 1. You're going to be getting a lot of playing time in the preseason, and in week 2, depends on how long Beckwith's out, because depending on how long he's out, you could be the starter. That's kind of a big deal, so you've really got to make sure that you give it your all and you really show what you can do. Obviously, I'll be giving predictions for all these types of battles and whatnot later on down the line, as we are still a pretty good couple of months away before the season even starts. So, but it is interesting for guys like Bond, Harris, and Lynch. Moving on now to the middle linebacker position, Quan Alexander, Riley Bullough, Jack Sitchie, and Jeff Knox. Last year, I really wanted Jeff Knox to make the roster, and I actually predicted, I guess you could say, that he was going to make the roster. He did get beat out by Bullough, kind of. I mean, Bullough made it to the practice squad. Darius Glanton, Darius Taylor ended up being the middle linebacker, and Knox did not make it. But he's back for round 2, which is exciting to me because I like Jeff Knox. But, I mean, moving on from him, though, Jack Sitchie and Riley Bullough, those guys are going to probably have a phenomenal battle for a backup middle linebacker spot. I could even see maybe Bullough moving over to the left outside linebacker position to compete there. Maybe even Sitchie moves over there too. A lot of people think that Sitchie was kind of the diamond in the rough steal for us in the draft. A lot of people are confident with that pick. And a lot of analysts were saying with Sitchie that if he would have been able to play, he probably would have ended up being a 3rd round pick. He was just injured. So it all depends if he can get healthy. If he is healthy, you got to figure that Jack Sitchie is going to be the favorite to win that backup spot over guys like Jeff Knox and Riley Bullough. But I still wouldn't count those guys out. Obviously, they can win practice squad spots. Obviously, they can maybe go for that left outside linebacker spot. Who knows? It all just depends. Obviously, with Quan, I don't want to say he had a down year last year, but I don't think he did, but a lot of people thought that he wasn't hitting holes correctly and stuff like that, and he wasn't as good in coverage. I still think Quan is going to be our franchise middle linebacker, so it's just business as usual for Quan. Just always trying to better yourself. If you're you know, kind of a star player. That's just all you can really do at that point. You're already kind of solidified as that starter, and from there on out, you just have to try and get better. So that's kind of what Quan Alexander is looking to do. I'm very confident in Quan. I think he's going to be a very good middle linebacker. He's just so good. I think I made the video a couple years, or not a couple years ago. I think I made a video last year talking about like why Quan Alexander is like a rising star, and I still think he is. I still think he's a phenomenal linebacker. Obviously, the second best linebacker behind Lavonte David. But you know, it's just business as usual, and he does have to get better. I'm sure if you asked him, he would say that yes, he can get better. So he's just got to fix maybe he's got to fix some mental errors, stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not exactly an expert. I couldn't tell you exactly what he has to fix, because I'm just not, you know, I'm not an expert on that. I'm not a middle linebacker, but he knows what he has to fix, and he'll obviously work on it. Moving now to the right outside linebacker, finally, Lavonte David, Adarius Taylor, formerly Adarius Glanton, Antonio Simmons, and Eric Nzocha. So, for guys like Eric and for guys like Antonio Simmons, like I said, with guys like Knox, with guys like Bullough, Bond, Harris, and Lynch, you're battling for that backup spot. I think Glanton certainly does have the edge in terms of backup linebacker duties ahead of them, obviously. For these guys, too, if they prove that they can be particularly useful on special teams, that's kind of another way to show your value. You know, the Bucs, generally, they have a pretty good cover unit, not just for kickoffs usually, but for punting as well. You're not going to see any of these guys be gunners on a punt team at all. They're not going to be gunners at all, but you could see them on kickoffs if they perform well on kickoffs. They're sure tackling, stuff like that. Coaches take note of that. I appreciate it because I don't want kickoff returns being run down for touchdowns. So you have to be able to contain, and you have to be able to wrap up and make sure a guy doesn't go for a 98-yard kick return for a touchdown or a punt return for a touchdown too. It's just stuff that you got to do. So if these guys can prove valuable in certain fields like that, you know, prove and show hustle, and then when they do get that opportunity for middle linebacker, or sorry, backup linebacker snaps, they prove themselves there as well. You know, maybe you could see some guys like Nzocha or Simmons or Knox or Bullough, maybe they sneak their way into the roster, or maybe they get a practice squad spot. You know, who knows? It's not totally unheard of. Bullough was on the practice squad last year. A lot of people thought he should have made the roster over a couple of guys. Lynch has obviously been making the roster for the past few years now, on and off. Anything can happen with these backup spots, so I keep on trying to say that word. I would not count any of these guys out. And then with Adarius Taylor, he's coming back from a broken leg in the Monday Night Football game versus the Atlanta Falcons last year. I actually saw that injury. Didn't look good. That looked like that would hurt a lot. So hoping he can come back fully healthy. I think he'll be fine for the most part. You know, obviously he's spent a lot of time on special teams. Coaching staff likes him. I like him. I think he's a great guy. Very fun-loving guy and whatnot. So, you know, just being able to come back healthy is probably his main concern. I always feel like, I've asked athletes before, like, if you come back from, like, a broken leg, like, do you feel worried about re-injuring it or anything like that? And they go, honestly, if I don't feel it, then I don't worry about it. So, you know, that's kind of going to be Glanton's goal, is to just be able to come back fully healthy, maybe not push himself too hard if he isn't fully healthy, and just work on what he's good at, and that's special teams and being a middle linebacker who can, I would even call Glanton a fringe starter when he needs to be. You know, he's proven that he can be a pretty decent starter and not be too bad. So, you know, I like Glanton a lot as a backup linebacker. I think I like him probably the most besides Jack Sitchie as a backup linebacker, so I expect Sitchie and I do expect Glanton to both make the roster for sure. And then obviously Lavonte David, he's Lavonte David. He's a top coverage linebacker in the league, in my opinion. The top. I mean, a lot of people. Lavonte David's underrated. You know, let me know if you want me to make a Lavonte David is underrated video, because like Lavonte David, I love Lavonte David. He's so good. A lot of people say that like Sean Lee's better than him in terms of like 4-3 linebackers. Like, oh, Sean Lee's the best. Nah, man, freaking Lavonte David's the best in my opinion. Just for him, it's just gonna be being himself. You know, his starting job's not in jeopardy. I think he's still on a I think he's still got a couple years left on his contract, and Quan's going to need a new contract after the end of the year, so he's going to have to perform pretty well. I think he's going to be getting a contract, if you want my honest opinion about it. But, yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new and like the video and all that. What do you guys think about the backup linebackers like Bond, Harris, Lynch, Bullough, Sitchy, Knox, and then like Simmons, Nizocha, and Glanton? Who do you think is going to win these certain battles? I think obviously our three starters, when fully healthy, are Beckwith, and Quan, and Levante. But there's a lot to be said for these backup battles. Do you think Sitchy and Glanton are pretty much safe? Sitchy and Taylor, sorry. Do you think Sitchy and Taylor are pretty much safe in terms of their roster spots? Do you think somebody could come in and surprise? Do you think Riley Bullough can make some noise again this year? A lot of people thought he had pretty good leadership. I agree too. I think he has a pretty good chance of making the roster. You know, just give me your general opinion about the linebackers. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next video. But until then, goodbye for now, guys. See ya.